All right, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar in the series of Quantum with Friends. This particular one is about quantum computing and the board of directors. My name is Yuval Boger. I'm Chief Commercial Officer for QuEra. My job in life is to help customers make progress in their quantum journeys, understand what these journeys are, see where they want to be, and see if we can help get there. And together with me is my friend Steve Suarez. Steve, how are you today?
Very good, very good. I'm calling in from Singapore. So if you see that I'm a bit tired, it's 12:02 in the morning, but I was actually really excited, looking forward to having this conversation and sharing my thoughts with the people on.
Well, very good. I'm so thankful that you were able to make time. It's such a late hour before you turn into a pumpkin. So that's great. So Steve is the founder and CEO of HorizonX Consulting. He'll talk a little bit more about his background and his work. And as I mentioned, I'm a Chief Commercial Officer of QuEra. And this is what we intend to do. Very, very simple. I'll give a few slides of introduction to QuEra, some of our recent milestones, and what do we do in business. Then we'll talk about engaging with the board of directors. Steve will lead that part. And then we'll do question and answers. So who is QuEra? So QuEra is the leader in the neutral atom quantum computing. We are a company that's headquartered in Boston, close to Harvard and MIT. And this closeness is not just about geographical closeness. We also have very tight academic collaborations. Our founders started at Harvard and MIT. A lot of our team members are from Harvard and MIT. And we continue to enjoy really the breakthrough science that's happening at Harvard and MIT and at QuEra and try to bring it to the market. So we build quantum computers using neutral atoms. As many of you know, there are many ways to build quantum computers: superconducting, photonics, silicon, trapped ions, and so on. And we believe that neutral atoms is the best way to get to where we all want to be, which is large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computers. And we believe that QuEra is both the scientific as well as the commercial leader in neutral atoms. So neutral atoms is better, and QuEra is best. We have a computer, a 256 computer called Aquila, that's deployed on Amazon Bracket since November of 22. Anyone in the world with a credit card or a Bracket account can use it, and indeed, very many people have. And we work on customers with customers on several continents: U.S., Europe, Oceania, Asia, and many others. I mentioned briefly our 256 qubit Aquila computer. We launched it just over 2 years ago. We just celebrated its second birthday this week. It remains the only publicly accessible neutral atom quantum computer in the world, which we continue to enjoy. As measured by the number of qubits, I think it's the largest publicly accessible computer in the world. It's available for 130 hours a week. So pretty much the entire week, you can submit jobs anytime you want. And we meet very stringent uptime requirements as dictated by our friends at AWS. People use it for three key types of applications: simulation, optimization, and machine learning. And that use of Aquila has resulted in several breakthrough publications, as well as a very nice work, BMW, JP Morgan, lots of universities. So we're very pleased with the progress that the scientific progress that Aquila has enabled. A couple of recent milestones for QuEra that we can't stop talking about. The first one is last month we announced a strategic investment that Google made in QuEra. This is both a great testament to the potential of neutral atoms as well as a validation of our leadership. So we're very thankful and happy with that. And also, earlier this year, we signed two deals that we can talk about. One deal is to deliver a neutral atom testbed to the UK Research and Innovation Campus in Harwell, UK. And the other one is to deploy a quantum computer at ICE, the Japanese National Institute of Standards. We also recently announced an MOU to manage the cloud service for this computer. So things are going very well on that front. And to work with QuEra, there are three ways to work with QuEra. One is to buy a machine, and what you see here is a container for a neutral atom quantum computer. So I don't know what's in the other containers, but this one is going to be a pretty high value. So this is how it looks when you ship a quantum computer. So you can purchase a quantum computer, and then, of course, we provide on-site installation, support, community engagement, and make sure that you can make the most out of your investment. We also offer cloud access, either through Amazon or directly. When you work directly with us, you can get mentoring, support, code design services with our top-notch scientific team. So we often engage customers in, could be a 6-month or a 1-year project to optimize a particular algorithm to take super advantage of the unique capabilities of our machine. And you can do it either as joint development or as cloud access, sort of self-service. So it's entirely up to you. And then why are we here, or why are we talking with Steve from HorizonX? Earlier this year, we launched what we call the QuEra Quantum Alliance. And the QuEra Quantum Alliance basically says it takes a village. We believe that neutral atoms is the way to go, but we can't be experts in everything. We're experts in building neutral atom computers, but there's consulting and application delivery and software and training and so on. And so we've gathered together some fantastic partners, and you can see many of the logos here. I apologize if I missed one or two, and actually new companies are getting added to this list. So I think in a couple of months, this slide will be even more impressive. But we've got HorizonX, Steve's company. We've got the Posy Supercomputer Center. We've got Quantum Machines and Classic, QCware, StrangeWorks, QControl, 2 Italian companies that we did a webinar with in Italian just a couple of weeks ago, E4 and BIP, and so on. So reach out to us if you're interested in seeing what the Alliance gives you and how you could be part of that. So with that, Steve, I would love to turn it to you and learn a little bit about your business and your experience and how to talk quantum to the board of directors.
Great presentation, Yuval, and I really like your container. I'm hoping that's what you're going to be sending me soon, because I'm waiting here in the UK to get the machine up and running at the NQCC. I think QuEra has done some great announcements. I'm really excited to see what's going on, and which is one of the reasons I thought I wanted to join the team. I always look for the best and brightest companies, and it just so happens that I also went to MIT and Harvard. So I know that's not a prerequisite, but it definitely helps. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, and for the people on the call, just to make sure that I know people are out there, I would love to hear where you're calling in from. So in the chat, just type in kind of the state, the country, where you're calling in from. And then ask your questions, because I can tell you that if it's just Yuval and I talking this whole time, it's going to get boring. And like I said, it's 12:10 here. So the last thing you want to do is me put you to sleep, or you guys put me to sleep. But it's great. It looks like we're getting people from Europe and from the US or the UK, Toronto. That's great. Okay. I'm going to share just 3 slides with you, maybe 4. And then what we're going to do is get into kind of question and answer. I was telling you, Yuval, for you guys to get the value out of this, don't be shy. Ask questions. Disagree with me if you'd like. And that's kind of how we open things up. I'm okay to be challenged. Part of what I used to do at HSBC was run innovation. And I could tell you that if everybody tells you the same thing that you're telling yourself, then you're really not innovating and you're not pushing. And so I don't mind a bit of challenge. So feel free to kind of share your thought. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully, Yuval, you can see my screen. I'll go to full screen here. And so, yeah, it was great that we were able to join the Alliance. As soon as I saw that, I definitely wanted HorizonX to be part of it. I see all the great companies and all the leading companies that are doing it. And a little bit about HorizonX. So what we do is a consulting company to help companies understand what quantum is. So I focus more on the board level, on the C level. And one of the things that I do that for is that I used to be the global head of innovation for global functions at HSBC. I was at the bank for 20 years. And one of the things that I did was help the bank put together a strategy, how we were going to approach it for the next 3 to 5 years. That gave us the authority to get the money and the resources to build a very good team. We built a very solid team, and we made some really good headway in this technology. Now, it's not that today we're saying, oh, we've hit quantum advantage. That was never the extent. And if so, I would say if anybody is promising that to the board, you're already setting yourself up for failure. My goal is to say, educate the board, have them understand what they need to do. And you know what? I'll go through that in detail in just a second. A little bit of background on myself. So I'm a senior advisor at Bain, Mitsubishi Corporation. Obviously, I sit on the UK board for QuEra Computing, Classic, from a PQC perspective, QSecure, and some other companies. Ever since I left HSBC, I like the diversity of what I do. And so you might think that this is a very big, different mix, but there's a logic to the work that I'm doing with the different companies. And this keeps me on my toes because I can get involved in a lot of different things. So for Mitsubishi, I actually put on a hat and I'm a buyer of services. For QuEra and some of these others, I'm actually out there selling services. And in my spare time, I'm teaching quantum strategy at CFTE. So I'm teaching quantum strategy specifically for financial services. That's why I'm here in Singapore. I'm launching that course at the Singapore FinTech Festival. And then next month, I'm launching a course at MIT for quantum strategy for corporate executives and government leaders. And I'm going to give you guys a glimpse of what I'm teaching in that course and how I approach it.
Steve, I just wanted to ask you, you don't have a PhD in physics, right?
Nope, I don't have a PhD in physics.
So how did you get into quantum? I mean, I only have a master's as well, but how did you get into quantum? I see a question from the audience, how to get involved in quantum. How did you learn what you need to know about quantum technology?
Well, it all happened back in November 2019 when Google wrote a paper in Nature magazine claiming that they hit quantum supremacy. Because I was the head of innovation at that time, I was called in to all these boards to say, Steve, you're the head of innovation, come and update all the boards about quantum computing because we hear it's going to break RSA encryption and we're dead in the water. All of a sudden, I had an moment where I said, oh my God, I'm going to have to go and present to the board on something I really don't know about. And so I rapidly had to educate myself, understand more. And I went back to school and I went back to actually MIT and I studied under the 4 courses at MIT. And I went through that and I realized that as soon as I was there, within 20 minutes of one of the courses, it went right into the maths. And that's not what I needed. I needed more corporate executive level. So I actually pushed myself to really understand the maths. I understand the technology so that I really could understand it. Eventually, I got asked to speak at Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal. And I'm not a fake it till you make it person. And I don't think especially the quantum physicist on the call, like anybody that tries to fake this. And so I really wanted to learn it. So I really forced myself to learn the technical side of it. That's when I realized there was a big gap because everybody jumped into the technical side and there wasn't a business side of it, or it wasn't an approach. And how do you sell it to business? And I'm a very simple person myself. And so I've gotten all business degrees, and at MIT, while it's a technical school, it was at Sloan, and at Harvard, it was all business. And so part of the way I come at this is not from a technology side. There's a lot of way smarter people doing the technology side. I come out of it is how do I make this valuable? How do I create value And that's what people buy. People buy value. They don't really care about technology. When you guys use your Uber app, you don't use Uber app because you like the app and how it works on your phone. You like it because it gets you a car to where you want it, and that car takes you to where you want. Everything that happens in the background, you could care less. And so business people are the same way. So is it quantum technologies? Is it AI technologies? So my goal is to say, how do we use quantum to give people advantage that they don't have today? And I have a different approach. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Yuval, but then I'll just kind of jump in and talk about how I approach it.
It does, absolutely. And I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this slide, because I think that many companies go directly into, oh, I have this amazing technology, let's do a proof of concept. But maybe that's not the right approach.
That's exactly right. So a lot of people love to sell their POC, and they know, like, oh, my company does widgets. Let's go ahead and go into your company, and I'm going to do a widget to your company. I don't really know your strategy. I don't really care. But my strategy is to sell you widgets. So I'm going to go in and sell you a widget. And guess what? I go into a company, I deal with middle management that really doesn't have the support of the board or senior management. They agree because they've got a small budget to let me do a POC for free or very little money. We go in there, we do all this work, and then they don't have the buy-in. And it's natural because your POC might not be tied to the strategy of the company. And so it doesn't go anywhere, and people get frustrated, and people then say, oh, well, quantum, it doesn't deliver, or it doesn't do anything. It's because we're really starting at the wrong place. And so where I like to start is really with the board. And starting with the board is really giving them kind of the carrots about educating them. What is quantum? At their level, not technical. I don't go into a binary and it's got this and the superposition and then this angle and then the electron does. No, because once you start getting into that, you've kind of lost them. You've got to say, all right, here's the value. Here's what you can take advantage, but you got to do it in business sense. So I talk to them about what it is, number one, in simple terms. I talk to them about what are the opportunities that these technologies can promise once we get there. Number two, and this is important, I also talk to them that the better the quantum computers get, the more of a threat it comes to your security. And so I'll give you guys a secret, and the people on this call, sometimes people are more scared and react to being scared than they are to an opportunity. And so because quantum gives me both sides of this, some people have to respond to security and cybersecurity things. And I use that to get me into talking about quantum because that's what they want to talk about. So most of my clients today bring me in because they want to talk about the security side of it and stuff. But then I use that as an opportunity to say, hey, there's an opportunity here. So if you look at it holistically and not just the threat, but if you look at what are the opportunities and what this technology can give you, it can do that. So if I educate them and they trust, and I'm a trusted advisor to them, then when they realize they need to look at quantum, then they ask me, can you come in and help write a strategy? And so I take their existing strategy and come up with a quantum strategy that folds into that, so that I'm not just creating a quantum strategy, I'm creating a quantum strategy that ties in to that. Now, I'm not telling you, hey, we're going to be quantum advantage this or whatever. Part of it is education. Quantum is going to take time. And the way I approach quantum is like you're running a marathon. If you're running a marathon, you're not going to show up the day of the race and start running, right? Because you're not going to get very far. You're running a marathon, you're going to train, you're going to do everything you need, you're going to upskill yourself, you're going to do everything so that the day you run, you're already prepared and you're running and you're starting. If you're going to just show up the day of the marathon, guess what? You're going to come in last place, you're not going to run, it's going to be terrible. So what I tell people is you need to get that muscle memory to understand how quantum is different, how you're coding. You need to get the right talent on board. You need to get access to machines. There's so much that needs to happen, and that's where the strategy comes in. Then we need to solve problems that are aligned to your strategy, and then you go into POCs, and then you try it out. And so that is a lot more meaningful. You gain the trust of the board. You get them to set aside resources. And again, you don't have to go in with very big pocket and spend multi-millions. You can do this smartly, very focused on things that you can actually have an impact. And so this is kind of and then once you identify a POC and things go well, then you look to scale, and then you can do that. And the good thing is that there's an intersection coming up. You've got quantum computers that are getting stronger. The quality of those qubits are getting better. On the other side, you got error correction that is getting great. And then on the other side is you got the AI stuff and how we're using AI to build circuits and make things faster. This kind of intersection between these technologies are making this all possible, and we can actually take advantage of it. And that's what I'm trying to explain, is that you're at a stage to where if you start working on these things now, you can actually have a benefit. This is my last slide, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. And so I talk about this concept in the MIT course about quantum vigilance and quantum visioning. And so quantum vigilance is about looking at the outside market. You do not have control of quantum vigilance. It's about looking at how well, QuEra is doing, how well is IBM doing, how well are some of these other companies doing, how are the quality of those qubits, how are things getting better, and how are these companies progressing? That is an outside view. You start understanding, you got to understand what are the metrics you need to look at, like coherence rate, gate fidelity, all of that, and understand, hey, they got roadmaps. How do those roadmaps compare to what I want to do? And that's the other side of this coin, which is quantum visioning. Quantum visioning that's now in my control. So what are the use cases that I'm going to build within my organization that are going to align themselves to the three things that you've all said: optimization, simulation, machine learning? And how do I use this technology to either change my strategy, to enhance my strategy, to give me new things that this technology will offer me once the quantum computer gets strong enough? And so I start developing that training, that muscle memory. I'll start writing those algorithms, start doing things differently using quantum to get there. Now, the beauty is when both of these line up, when you got the quality of those qubits, and then you got your use cases and you're ready, is getting into that intersection. And that's when you're going to hit commercial value. And so I don't know when that is. It really depends on you. It depends on the creativity and the work. And that goes back to Yuval's point around Yuval and team are doing the quality of the qubits. They're focused on making the error correction much better. On your side, we need to be looking at what use cases are we going to develop and how are we going to use this technology to make things happen. And that's where I work with companies and help develop that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and hopefully you guys are all still there and you can start asking your questions.
So let me ask you a couple of questions while additional questions are coming in on the chat, on the Q&A box. So let's assume I'm a member of a board of directors of a large company. I saw your interview on Bloomberg, and now we're riding in an elevator. So Steve, I understand you are an expert in quantum or in quantum for business. What does quantum mean for me? Give me your elevator pitch, please.
Yeah, I think we need to sit down and see what quantum means with you. Not having a strategy is not a strategy. So if we go through it and understand what it means and what it can do, and then you decide, look, I'm just not going to do that, that's part of a strategy. My strategy is I'm not going to pay attention to this. But what I say is focus on education. Understand what it is, what it isn't, and don't listen to the hype, but understand. And then you come and tell me, Steve, I think we have an opportunity, or Steve, not now, let's revisit this in a year from now. And so my immediate thing is, let me educate you to understand what it is, because I can tell you 99.9% people think they know what it is, or a lot of people don't know, but they don't care. And I'm trying to get people to care.
Now, since we're role playing, so I have friends on other boards of directors, and I spoke with my friend John the other day, and he said, quantum is 5 years away, it's 10 years away. So why bother? I mean, shouldn't I just focus on AI right now?
I mean, from a resource perspective, it's funny because if you look at, I think it was McKinsey, and they were talking about their investment, and it fell last year. And people were like, oh, well, that means we're having a quantum winter. Not really, because I saw it. What happened was that everybody moved their money from quantum to AI. And what happened was they're spending a lot of money on AI because it caught them all by surprise. And what I'm saying is, don't let this catch you by surprise. Be proactive. Go out there and educate yourself. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but start understanding what this means. Now, there's two sides to it. Remember, you have your opportunities, but then you have your threats. And I could tell you through regulation, through things like PQC, which is post-quantum cryptography, with the NIST standards being out there, those are things you have to look at today. And that ties into quantum, because the better quantum gets, the more your security gets threatened. And so, maybe I use the regulatory mandatory conversation to help me educate them. And once they're educated, then they're open to it.
Just continuing on the theme of AI, I mean, some people think about Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3, immediate term, medium term, long term. Your company's name is HorizonX. So what does X equal for quantum, in your opinion?
I think there are different stages. So I think in Horizon 1, and that's great that you caught that, because that's how I came up with the name. I was going to be Horizon 3, but then I thought, well, then people don't think I do Horizon 1 and 2. So in Horizon 1, I focus on education. And that's about your current operations. How do I educate you? In Horizon 2, I focus on things like quantum-inspired type things, where I can start teaching you and we can actually simulate some of these things so that you can start understand what does it do to create these algorithms, create these circuits, to do this stuff. Horizon 3 is, now these quantum computers are strong enough. You've got the algorithms. Now let's start using them. And so you're going to see some benefit. So even if I show you a 1% benefit over what you have today, that's a benefit. But then as the computers get stronger, that benefit starts getting higher. And I think on the simulation is where I think we know that there's going to be a lot of benefit that could be exponential. And then on the optimization and machine learning right now, they think it's a quadratic speed up, but it's a speed up, right? And so, but you don't know if you're not going to do this. And I think that the intelligence is in the creativity of the people that make things happen. I go back to like Apple Computer. It wasn't Steve Wozniak that made the Apple Computer blow up, right? It was kind of the ingenuity of the Steve Jobs to say, you know what, I'm going to put this and we're going to make this happen. Steve Wozniak was fantastic. He was the technical guy. He made it happen. But it's people like Steve Jobs that actually put it out there and made it useful. Jeff Bezos, he's not a technical guy, but look what he's created using with technical people. So I think quantum can do the same, is we get some smart people that come at this at a different angle. They're going to find creative ways and use it, and they can build on top of the great things that a lot of the hardware companies like QuEra is doing.
Let me take one of the questions from the Q&A and I'll answer it while you go through some of the others and think about what you want to answer next. So I see a question, and feel free to submit additional ones. Can you provide a real business use case that benefits from quantum that you can't benefit from classical HPC? So let me tell you a secret. When I go to customers, I say, just between us, right? Cone of silence. Quantum computers are useless today. And they're like, what? Yeah, you're selling from a quantum computer company. What do you mean they're useless? Well, they're useless in the sense that there's very little you can do on a quantum computer that you cannot do classically. But the time where you can start doing really useful things on quantum computers, you can ask different experts. Some say it's next year. Some they say 2 years and 3 years. But you got to start now, because it takes time to understand what problems are a good fit for quantum. It takes time to get the people trained on the latest quantum technology. Let's assume that on a classical supercomputer, you can balance a portfolio of 100 assets, for instance. And you say, well, what if I could balance a portfolio of 1,000 assets? That would completely change my business. Well, before you balance a portfolio of 1,000 assets, why don't you take 10 or 20 or 30, run it on a quantum computer, because that's small enough so you can actually test the results versus your classical simulations. So sort of walk before you run and crawl before you walk. There's a couple of years, a year or 2 years of education, of proof of concepts, of proving both to yourself and to your board of directors. So the short answer is no, there's not a lot of use cases. I mean, we've seen some, fundamental physics where quantum computers are delivering results that classical computers can't. But for the vast majority of applications, we're not there yet, but we will be there soon. So better get ready. What
and it's
question would you like to take? Uh-huh.
And I think it's a good point. I think the funny thing is when we develop some things in quantum simulated, all of a sudden the classical guy goes, oh, I can rewrite that classically and do better. So we're actually getting the classical guys to sharpen their pencils, which is good because it's creating this competition. And it's also making them approach a problem in a different way that they wouldn't have thought of before. So that in its own provides value. I think the point about how do you consider assessing requirement efforts by talking to the C-level, but you do need that deeper knowledge. Absolutely. You do not want to do this with those people. The only reason you bring in the C-level and the board is to get the money and the resources. The closer you can get to the action, those are the guys that know this well, and that's going to be the most successful. So, Lauren, I completely agree with you on that point.
Now, when you go to a board of directors, do you ask for a 1-year budget? Do you ask for a 17-year program? I mean, how would you define the horizon? Or when should the board go back and say, oh, this was a wise investment, now let's think about the next step?
I usually try to I try to understand their risk tolerance and what they want to do. Because I focus on education first, education is really easy and very cheap to kind of get out there and understand. That gives me time to develop a relationship with them and understand. So I usually try to do a 3-year program, no more than that, because anything more than that is guessing. And in that 3-year program, number one is I want to educate them. In year 2, I want us to start selecting and prioritizing use cases that I think and working with them that we can be successful on, even if we just want to match. And then year 3 is, how do we work that, use that in machines? How do we develop partnerships? How do we get exposure? So part of it is, do you want to invest in quantum computers? And I think, Yuval, that's how you and I met, is because you were part of an investment I made when I was at HSBC to help people get some of that exposure. So it's part of the strategy. In other words, you go with academic partners, you go with strategic hardware partners, you go with strategic software partners, and you make some investments so that you can get some of that exposure. And then you now have people that want to see you succeed and get there. So I think it's a combination of things. There's not like a formula I can just tell you do this, but I think that's the way I approach it. And I really work on the risk tolerance of the company.
I think for quantum as well as other technologies, sometimes it's top down and sometimes it's bottom up. And what I mean by that is sometimes there's a board of director members that reads in the Wall Street Journal that quantum is coming and comes in and talks to the CTO, says, what are we doing about quantum? Should we do something? What does that mean? But other times there may be technical people that got interested in quantum that are doing that in their spare time. And then at some point they work up the courage to bring it up higher up in the organization. What do you do in that second case? So a technical manager, mid-level manager, has some budget, did some proof of concept, somehow found a way to show that quantum is useful, but now wants to get executive level support for growing the team and making this an official project.
Yeah, I think part of it is there's always going to be competition. And so sometimes when it's somebody pushing it and versus you trying to pull it from it, it's a lot easier. And I think that's where the education comes in. So don't underestimate education, because sometimes when you educate people, they're like, oh, you know what? I just learned this. Let me try it out here. And getting some senior management people that are willing to take some of those bets with you is needed. So I could tell you if you don't have sponsorship, I wouldn't waste time. Sponsorship is key here, and you need people that are not going to be asking you, what's the ROI today? How much money am I going to make in 6 months? The reality is those are the wrong expectations, and you're only setting yourself up for failure. This is a long game. Remember, it's a marathon. You're not going to win it in a sprint, and that's not the mentality that you need to approach it.
Can you describe a case study, even if it's anonymized without revealing the company? It's, walking us through the process. What objections did you get during this process? How you perhaps overcame them?
Yeah. But number one, I could tell you that when I told people about quantum, the first reaction was, Steve, that's 5 to 10 years. And it's always been 5 to 10 years. Why are we going to spend money on it today? And I try to explain to them, yes, I understand it's been 5 to 10 years, but there's been a lot of advancements. I talked about error correction. I talked about, some of the announcements on QuEra's roadmap. And it is getting in sooner. And so I do then talk about the kind of the security aspect of it. And so I also tell them we don't need big budgets to try things out. And so how do you learn? How do you start getting around this? Now, the one thing I am using, Yuval, is that next year, the United Nations Assembly has announced that the year of 2025 is going to be the year of quantum. There's going to be a lot of talk in the industry, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of overhype. And there's going to be people asking questions. And I always love to position myself knowing that this is going to come up, and how do I become that trusted partner? And for the people on this call, I think it's a great opportunity to position yourselves to learn about this so that when it does come up, and it will come up in your organizations, that you can have an answer and you can be seen as forward thinking and driving through it. It depends on your level. Not everybody needs to be technical. And I could tell people on this call, I'm not technical. There's a lot of fantastic scientists out there that work on this. And it's about how do you leverage your team to bring in the right people when you need the right. Not everybody will know all of this, and that's not the expectation.
Very good. I think we're almost running out of time. There was a question, how does QuEra help? So QuEra, as I mentioned, can certainly engage in co-design activities. And that's a process where we usually say, okay, tell us about some of the problems you're considering for quantum. We can tell you about some of the things that we do. And if there's an overlap, let's find a way to work together. Steve, what's the best way to get in contact with you for people on the call or otherwise that want to gain more of your wisdom?
Just drop me an email at steve@QuEra.com. I got QuEra to kind of set up that email for me. Drop me an email or look at, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm always publishing kind of the latest things, what people are asking me. You can feel free to follow me there. Like I said, I'm launching a course for financial services specifically here today on the CFTE website. And then next month, I'm launching it with MIT. And I'd love to get your feedback to get, how do I make it better? It's a journey. And guess what? I'm going through the journey myself, and I'm always looking to make it better. I'm a big believer in this industry, and I want to see it progress. And I want to be one of the people that helps it progress.
And of course, please keep track of events on QuEra.com, our events page. We have lots of webinars coming up, scientific ones, software, case studies, and so on and so on. So we're always available to help educate the community and help you make progress in your quantum journeys. So with that, I want to thank you very much, Steve, and thank the audience for joining us today. And we'll see you in the next webinar.